Hello and welcome back to the Sports Locker. I'm Gabe Perez.
And I'm Maria Shetkowski.
And we're also seniors, which means this is our last time anchoring together. Oh man. But it's not the only thing we're doing for the last time as well. The seniors in the men's basketball team competed for their last time on April 1st. And not to be mistaken as an April Fool's joke, the Ramblers won, having beat Louisiana Monroe University during the first round of the College Basketball Invitational. Loyola only needed one more win to take it all home, and the second game was in Monroe, Louisiana, and it was heated. With the score at the half being 33-33, it seemed that it could go either way. Thanks to Turk's team highs of 14 points, Milton Doyle's 13 points, and MVP Earl Peterson scoring 12 points, the Ramblers were able to defeat Louisiana Monroe University Warhawks with a score of 63-62. This marks Loyola's first national postseason tournament title since the 1963 NCAA championship against Cincinnati. This also makes Loyola the second team in an 8-year history of the CBI to sweep the championship series. Man, that sure makes me Rambler proud. Maybe next year I can put them on my NCAA tournament bracket.
It would be mad if it didn't. Speaking of mad, men's volleyball fell once again to Lewis University last Thursday. Lewis topped Loyola in 4 sets, bringing the Ramblers' record to 18-2. The entire game was neck and neck, but unfortunately Loyola just couldn't win the sets. Jeske had a match-high 19 kills and 14 digs. Cody Caldwell and Ben Playstead each had 4 kills. The Ramblers will play Quincy University Friday night in Quincy, Illinois.
I dig it. Almost as much as I dig a fresh morning.
Hey Gabe, aren't you really into running? I've seen you run around campus before.
I was just going to say a morning run, but you've probably seen me run because I'm always late to class. But I did my fair share of hurdles in the day and still keep up with the track team here and there.
And how are they doing?
Amazing as always. The Loyola track team went to both Florida and California this weekend for 2 performances. In the Florida relays, the 4x1 team of Chris Stroop, James McLaughlin, Kevin Glastetter, and Jazz Hayes crossed the finish line with a time of 41.09, giving them the 5th best time in the school record books. Allison Ciccone earned 5th place in the shot put with an impressive toss of 14.4 meters. Over in California for the Stanford Invitational, Sam Penzenstadler finished 3rd in his 800-meter heat with a time of minute 50.96. Audrey Michelson also ran the 800 meters in California and ran a time of 2:16.07. Coach Hassenbank was pleased and said, "Overall, we had a good weekend." The Ramblers track and field team will head to California again on April 16th for the Mount Sac relays.
Softball season has begun, and they're beginning to get into the swing of things. Ramblers split a doubleheader against Northern Illinois Huskies Wednesday evening. The Ramblers fell to the Huskies in the first game, 3-1. However, in the second game, they topped the Huskies 6-5 in 9 innings. Senior Taryn Schaefer led the Ramblers with 3 hits, a run, and an RBI. The Ramblers take the field this weekend in a 3-game series at Missouri State, beginning with a doubleheader on Saturday.
And the calendar has shifted to April, but I still feel some March Madness in the air. Our Ramble contestants will battle it out to see which tournament moment they remember the best.
Hey y'all, and welcome to this week's Weekly Ramble. I'm your host, Milap Mehta, and I am joined by our 2 contestants, our defending champ, Joaquin Carrig, and the challenger, Molly Brewer. Now, we have all decided to wear green today in honor of St. Paddy's Day, which happened about a month ago. They forgot to give us the memo, so now we're just up to date here. If you have any other feedback, just feel free to get us. We might get Valentine's Day in sometime too. But anyways, March is over, and we still have to talk about some March Madness. So, Molly, what is your favorite March Madness moment from this year?
For my moment, I'm going to have to go with the Wisconsin versus Kentucky game. First of all, I'm a huge Big Ten fan because I'm from Columbus, Ohio, and although I root for the Buckeyes and they did not make it that far, I had to root for Wisconsin because I'm not a fan of Kentucky. But aside from my own personal bias...
You had your national championship.
We did have our national championship, thank you. But aside from my own personal bias, I would have to say that it was the most entertaining game by far for a number of reasons, but I can save those.
I mean, there were people crying at the end, and that usually means something happens. Joaquin, what do you got?
People cry at the end of all of these March Madness games. But I don't know how you could go against the national championship. It's the national championship game, and to me, the two best teams played in the national championship game. With the semifinal game that you mentioned, Kentucky was in, and I know Kentucky was undefeated, but they're playing in the SEC, and I think that the two strongest conferences this year were the Big Ten and the ACC, and so I think the best of each of those conferences were participating in the final.
Yeah, that's a very fair point by Joaquin, except he forgot to mention that Duke played in the final, and any game with Duke, it's not good.
I said Duke played in the
Yeah,
final.
exactly.
Well, I didn't forget to mention that, though.
No, that's true. Yeah, forget what I said. Pretend it was something funny. Molly, so you did mention that, the semifinal was a great game. Obviously, Kentucky, Wisconsin were both hyped up. But we had so many, Cinderella teams, and then you had the championship, too. How does a semifinal game compare to something that was either super shocking versus, the grandest stage?
I just think that for the semifinal game, there was a lot at stake. So as Joaquin mentioned, it was the first time that Kentucky had lost their entire season, and that's devastating, even for an SEC team. I would also have to say that was the Badgers' first time making it to the national championship since 1941, and that's a huge win. Regardless of the outcome of the national championship, the fact that they got that win from the game against Kentucky, in my opinion, is notable. I'd also have to say that it was entertaining because you've got Kaminsky for the Badgers. He's AP Player of the Year. Everyone's watching him. He really held the team together. There were several really bad calls. Overall, I would just say that the game itself was very entertaining. Anyone, even if you don't like watching basketball, it was hard to turn away from that game.
There was a lot on the line in the national championship. The national championship was on the line there.
Yeah.
And Kaminsky played.
I have to ask you a question.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I can't rebut her.
It's not a rebut yet.
Okay.
It's coming, though. Joaquin is ready for this. So, your question is going to be, obviously, you might think that Kentucky plays in a weaker conference, but they were the most hyped team out of anyone in the tournament. So how can we, discount the fact that you have the most hyped team playing in a match?
That's true. They were the most hyped team, but I wouldn't necessarily say they were the best team. I think they were overhyped a little bit, just given the notoriety of Calipari and him getting the best recruits in the nation. But I think we saw the best matchup of the tournament with Kaminsky and Okafor playing in the final. And don't get me wrong, you were hating on me for mentioning that Duke was in the final. I'm a UNC fan, and I'm not a huge fan of Duke at all. But I have to admit that the Duke team was really good this year. And that team played up. We saw. I can't remember his first name, but Allen came on, barely played 10 minutes during the regular season. Basically, got them back in that game. And Okafor was not even really a big factor, and that just shows the depth of that team. And I just thought it was an entertaining team. Both teams were ahead at times. I thought we got the best of everything. We even got a little bit of controversy with the refs too.
This is true, but I feel like there's still Duke there, so. We can't forget the fact that
Duke. Yeah, but you can't let your personal bias make your.
I'm not being biased at all. I think everyone should hate Duke. So now, you all have one last chance. Molly, go ahead and rebut Joaquin's arguments.
So I know you say that obviously the national championship, that should be the most exciting game. That's what Joaquin's saying. But I think that comes with the title of being the national championship. You would often say that regardless of who's playing. I still hold to my belief that the Wisconsin-Kentucky game was just the most entertaining and exciting of the matchups, aside from having the title of being the national championship. Everything that went into play with the game itself and up to the last minute scoring, I think that was the best game out of the entire March Madness.
All right, Joaquin, what do you got? You can continue your rebut or start a new one. It's up to you.
I'll continue my rebut. You mentioned that Kaminsky played in the semifinal game and that he was one of the best players in the league. He also played in the final game too, and we got to see Okafor. Well, I guess we didn't get to see as much of Okafor as we would have liked, but we got to see two of the best big men in the game playing in that final game. And I think it was a back and forth game for much of the game, whereas Wisconsin had that second half pretty much in hand. Even though it was a close ending, they were going to win that game. So.
Alrighty. Well, these two have made some pretty compelling arguments. I have to pick one of them. I would like to have both of them on next week, but I'm going to pick Molly because she didn't pick Duke, and I know Joaquin's going to give her
personal bias. Just get in on the decision.
We did have some. I had to go to sensitivity training the other day, So I'm going to be sensitive and not say anything worse about Duke and just let it go. So Molly is going to be moving on, but that was an amazing ramble. Now let's kick it back to you all at the desk.
Well, I definitely agree with Milap's verdict, but for me, it had nothing to do with the actual game. It was the crying kid in the Wisconsin-Kentucky game that really pulled at my heartstrings and made it memorable for me.
I mean, tears. They almost made me want Kentucky to win.
Almost.
And, well, checking in with the men's golf team, they placed an overall of 6th in the Bradley Spring Invitational with a total score of 919. Sophomore Michael Valletti hit a one over par 73, tying his career low. PJ Reiner, a junior, got his 3rd round in the 70s this weekend, putting a score of 77 to get him tied into 2nd place. On the women's side of things, they scored an overall score of 946 to place the Ramblers 2nd of the Invitational. Junior Bernice Sitampol led Loyola's golf team. She tied for 8th place in the tournament and scored a career low of 1 under par 71. 2 freshmen, Jessie Stade and Summer Moser, were in the top of 10, and Stade shot her lowest round in the Invitational with a 4 over par 76. The men's team will next be seen in Sulphur Springs, West Virginia for the Greenbrier Intercollegiate on April 13th. And the women's team will head to Terre Haute for Indiana State Spring Invitational on April 12th.
I wonder how hard golfers actually hit the ball. Speaking of hitting things, how do you feel about boxing?
Maria, did you know I box in the spare time?
Did you know it was the first sport to ever have a live radio broadcast?
Shut the front door! No
Here's
way.
Madeline Kenney to tell us more about the history of sports broadcasting with This Week in History.
On April 11, 1921, Florence Gibson with the Westinghouse radio station, KDKA in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, performed the first ever sports broadcast. The commentary covered a 10-round no-decision boxing match between Johnny Scott Schwab Dundee and Johnny Ray. The closest thing to a sports broadcast prior to this groundbreaking event was an experimental telegraph program in 1919. This telegraph event gave play-by-play of the Lone Star Showdown, which is a football game between the University of Texas and Texas A&M. KDKA set precedent for sports broadcasting later that year, commentating the first ever radio broadcasted Major League Baseball game and the first live play-by-play for college football. In later times, broadcasting sports became a norm around the world. Today, the U.S. alone has over 35 sports networks, excluding online streaming websites. For This Week in History, I'm Madeline Kenney.
Well, hopefully I can find a job opportunity with one of those networks after I graduate in May. Thanks, Madeline.
Hope so for all our sakes. And whoa, looks like Madeline isn't done. Continuing to show off her knowledge, we have Madeline Kenney and the sports science of tumbling.
This is Sports Science. My name's Madeline Kenney, and I'm a member of Loyola's cheer team. Today I'm going to be demonstrating for you a round-off back handspring back tuck. Woo! Okay, let's get started. So first, I start off with 2 to 3 to 4 steps before running into my round-off. When I hurdle, I want to take off at about a 45-degree angle before placing my hands on the ground. When I place my hands on the ground, there's a lot of pressure on my lead wrist, the one that's taped, and it's arched at a 90-degree angle. Now when I snap my feet down, I want to replace my hands as fast as I possibly can, and I want to go back and arch my back in a perfect half circle before my hands hit the ground. When my hands hit the ground, I want to hit a handstand before snapping my feet again and setting up tall into my tuck. You want to make sure that you are rotating over your head and pulling from behind your thighs, which means grabbing your thighs and rotating yourself. Rotate fast and then land on your feet. When I land on my feet, I stand straight up and bring my chest up so I don't fall forwards. I'm careful not to come up too fast though, so I don't fall backwards. And that is how you do a running round-off back handspring back tuck. So go ahead, try this at home. I encourage you to be safe though and make sure you get the basics before doing this. For the Rambler Sports Locker, this is Sports Science and I'm Madeline Kenney.
Bill Nye the Science Guy would be so proud of all the sports science. Speaking of which, I wonder what he has to say about this crazy weather.
Winter is coming.
Gabe, it's spring.
You know nothing, Maria. Shh, no.
Not my name? But anyway, in honor of both the approaching NBA playoffs and the 5th season of Game of Thrones premiering on Sunday, here's this week's viral video.
I had the dream again. I saw it.
Were you inside Benny the Bull again, little lord?
No. It was the three-eyed bird. Might as well tank next year. We've got no chance since Maester Rivers went west.
You know nothing, Rondo.
When I heard that a Gasol brother got knocked out by the thunder, I didn't believe it. But here you are.
Here I am. I'll take that hot dog now.
I'll tell you what. We'll trade you one of our hot dogs for one of yours. Give us a go at the point guard. Like to have me a little one-on-one with this one.
You're a talker. Talkers make me thirsty.
These are the King's colours. No one's standing in our way now.
The Kings.
Carmelo. After Sir Jordan, I have only loved one player's game. Yes. The Black Mamba.
Wow, can't believe it.
Great video, huh? I'd definitely be a Lannister or Daenerys. Yeah, definitely her.
No. I mean that this is it. We're done.
Well, Drat, you're right. So that means that this is our last page of Anchor Script ever?
Our last page ever. So I guess at the anchor desk for the last time, I'm Gabe Perez.
And I'm Maria Shatkowski. Don't forget to turn out the light.
Ay, Dios mío.
This is so sad.
This is so sad.
What am I doing with my life?
I don't know. I think I'm
I
gonna go
don't
back to
have any
living in the
other
box. Wait, you know?